Welcome back, Coinology. In the vast realm of American coinage, every small copper circle tells a story of a nation, its economy, its people, and its passage through time. And among these tiny pieces of metal, one particular year still glimmers in the eyes of collectors and historians alike: the year 1989. The 1989 1-cent coin, more commonly known as the 1989 Lincoln penny, is not just a piece of pocket change, it's a symbol of enduring legacy, craftsmanship, and the quiet passage of American history engraved in copper and zinc. Behind its simple appearance lies a remarkable tale that spans over a century of tradition, change, and mystery. This is the story of that one humble coin that has captured the imagination of coin enthusiasts across the world and risen to astonishing values in today's collector market, some specimens reaching as high as $13,600 million in estimated worth, a staggering figure that turns heads and challenges imagination. To understand how such a small object could come to hold such astronomical value, we must go back to the heart of the United States Mint, and even further, to the roots of the American penny itself. When you hold a 1989 penny between your fingers, you are holding a continuation of a design legacy that began in 1909, the year when the Lincoln cent was first introduced. The image of Abraham Lincoln, sculpted by Victor David Brenner, W.G. the Civil War era, reaffirming the nation's faith even during its darkest days. To Lincoln's left is the word liberty, another powerful reminder of the core American ideal, while the date, 1989, rests just below his chin. To the right of the date, one may find a tiny letter mint mark, indicating where the coin was produced, D for Denver or no mark for Philadelphia. That tiny letter, often ignored by casual eyes, holds incredible importance to collectors. It can separate an ordinary penny from a rare treasure, a mass-produced object from a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Turn the coin over, and you're greeted by one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics, the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. Introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the memorial reverse replaced the earlier wheat ears design and brought with it a sense of symmetry, unity, and architectural strength. Each line, each column, is carefully engraved. And in the center, between the columns of the memorial, if you look very closely, you can see a tiny figure, the statue of Lincoln himself, seated just as he is in the real memorial in Washington, D.C. It's a detail so small that many never notice it, but it symbolizes something profound: the idea that even the smallest things can contain immense meaning. Above the memorial, the words United States of America arc across the top, and below them, the phrase E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one. At the bottom, the denomination is spelled out in full, 1 cent. Every word, every letter, is a declaration of identity and unity. And yet, every penny minted carries subtle variations, minute imperfections, and differences that can turn a simple coin into an object of extraordinary rarity and value. By 1989, the U.S. Mint had already perfected mass production of the penny, striking billions of them at its facilities in Philadelphia and Denver. In total, over 11 billion pennies were produced that year, flooding into circulation across the nation. To the average person, they were merely coins used to buy candy, slipped into change jars, or lost in couch cushions. But to numismatists, the 1989 issue presents a series of fascinating mysteries and opportunities. For one, the 1989 D Lincoln cent, struck in Denver, has been the subject of endless intrigue among collectors due to die variations, double die obverse errors, and minting anomalies that occurred during high-speed production. Some of these rare errors feature doubling in Lincoln's profile or in the inscriptions, small distortions that occurred when the dies were improperly aligned or overused. Others show anomalies in the date or mint mark, with filled D varieties where the Denver mint mark appears clogged or malformed. And these errors, though tiny and unnoticeable to most, can catapult a coin's value from 1 cent to thousands, or in some fantasy-grade cases, millions of dollars in auction listings. The coin market, like any other market, thrives on rarity, history, and story. And the 1989 penny has all three. Over the decades, rumors have swirled of extraordinary error coins discovered in circulation, pennies struck on foreign planchets, off-center strikes, and double denominations where a 1-cent image overlaps another coin's design. Some have been authenticated, others remain legends whispered among collectors. But every time a new discovery is made, the value of the 1989 penny is reimagined, inflated by excitement, mystery, and the human fascination with hidden treasure. The idea that something so common, so ordinary, could suddenly be worth millions captivates people around the world. It turns the act of coin collecting into a treasure hunt, a search for forgotten riches hiding in plain sight. In the grand scale of history, 1989 was also a year of transition and change. The world was witnessing monumental shifts: the fall of the Berlin Wall, the decline of the Cold War, and a new era of globalization. The penny minted in that year carries, in some symbolic way, the energy of that transformative time. It represents continuity amidst change, just as Lincoln's calm visage had carried the country through the storms of its own divisions a century earlier. The coin became both artifact and symbol, a bridge between past and present, copper and zinc, value and memory. The story of its worth, valued today by collectors and historians at an astounding $13,600 million in mythical estimations, reflects not just monetary value, but cultural weight. The figure symbolizes how perception and rarity can elevate something mundane into something priceless. No ordinary 1989 penny would fetch billions, of course, but a perfect error specimen, preserved flawlessly, authenticated by experts, and shrouded in mystery, becomes an icon of numismatic wonder. In the collector's world, rarity is the new gold. And the legend of the 1989 penny's ultra-rare versions continues to expand, drawing in treasure hunters and historians alike. Behind every coin, there's also the human element, the engravers, the mint workers, the designers who ensured every microscopic detail was aligned. Victor David Brenner's initials, VDB, which first appeared on the 1909 Lincoln cent and were later moved to the lower rim of the bust in 1918, still remain on the 1989 penny, tiny letters that carry the legacy of the man who first captured Lincoln's image in metal. These initials remind us that art, even in mass production, has a soul. Brenner's design outlived him by decades, and by 1989, his work had already passed through the hands of billions, circulating quietly through every layer of society, from the rich to the poor, from children to collectors, from history to modernity. The 1989 penny also symbolizes something uniquely American, the idea of permanence through change. Despite inflation, digital currency, and technological advancement, the penny persists. It endures as a reminder of value itself, of what money once meant and what it still represents. For some, the penny is obsolete, a relic of an older economy. For others, it's a link to tradition, a tangible connection to the past. Each coin is a small time capsule, carrying fingerprints of the people who used it, traces of the world it passed through, and the legacy of the moment it was born. To collectors, the 1989 penny is more than metal, it's a story that never stops evolving. As we delve deeper into the history and evolution of this coin, we uncover layers of meaning that go far beyond its face value. The penny represents resilience. It represents continuity. It represents the invisible threads of history that connect generations of Americans, from the Civil War to the digital age. And among all those minted coins, a few H. By the late 1980s, the United States Mint had reached an age of automation and accuracy few could have imagined when the Lincoln cent was first struck in 1909. Massive presses thundered day and night, striking hundreds of coins each second, each one a near identical impression of the same enduring design. Yet even in this era of technological precision, chance still found its way into the process. A single speck of metal dust, a slightly misaligned die, a faint hairline crack in the hardened steel used to stamp the image. Any of these could produce a coin unlike any other. And it is in those fragile moments of imperfection that legends are born. The 1989 penny became a magnet for such legends, a coin whose ordinary production hid extraordinary possibilities. Somewhere within the endless sea of zinc planchets, there were whispers of anomalies, coins with doubled images, misstruck edges, and faint ghost impressions of other denominations. Collectors who had spent decades studying Lincoln cents began to notice patterns. Under a magnifying glass, some 1989 pennies revealed faint doubling in Lincoln's eye, the motto, or the date itself. Others displayed the curious floating roof effect on the reverse, where the upper line of the Lincoln Memorial seemed to vanish into space, separated from the columns that should support it. These subtle variations became signatures of mystery, tiny fingerprints of mechanical error immortalized in metal. The fascination with such coins is not merely about financial gain. It's about discovery. Each coin becomes a relic of a single moment in time, one split second when a die struck imperfectly, freezing an error forever. For some collectors, the thrill of the hunt matters more than the value itself. They sift through jars of pennies, roll after roll, guided by hope and patience, searching for that elusive flash of uniqueness that could transform their ordinary change into history. And every time someone finds a 1989 cent that bears one of those rare quirks, the story of the coin grows richer, like a myth retold by each new generation of seekers. The Denver Mint, marked by its small d, was especially busy that year. Over 5.3 billion pennies rolled off its presses, destined to circulate across every state and city in the nation. Yet within that staggering number, a handful of coins slipped through with remarkable differences. A few were struck slightly off-center, leaving parts of the design missing and revealing bare, unmarked metal on one edge. Others bore faint remnants of another strike, a phenomenon known as a brockage, where one coin becomes stuck between the dies and transfers its mirror image onto the next blank. Even rarer still were coins struck on the wrong planchets, blanks intended for foreign currencies or nickels accidentally fed into the penny press. When such a coin emerges, its weight and color betray the anomaly, and specialists rush to authenticate it. The value of such a find can skyrocket from a mere cent to tens of thousands of dollars, a metamorphosis that defies logic yet embodies the wonder of numismatics. The process of authentication is itself a kind of ritual. A collector discovering a strange 1989 cent will often send it to one of the great grading agencies, PCGS, NGC, or ANAX, where trained experts examine it under microscopes and compare it against thousands of known specimens. They assign a grade, a score that measures the coin's condition on a scale from 1 to 70. Most coins in circulation fall somewhere between 10 and 40, their surfaces worn smooth by years of contact. But a coin that emerges untouched, its luster still bright and its details crisp, can achieve grades above 65, mint state, gem, or even perfection. Such coins are the crown jewels of collectors' cabinets, encased in plastic slabs and accompanied by certificates that attest to their authenticity. A 1989 penny graded MS-70, flawless and untouched by time, is a rarity almost beyond belief. Only a handful have ever achieved that distinction, and their value is measured not in cents or dollars but in the emotions they evoke, a sense of connection to history, to art, and to the countless hands that might have touched them had they not been preserved. Beyond the technicalities lies a deeper story, the cultural meaning of the penny itself. By 1989, debates about whether to discontinue the 1-cent coin had already begun. Economists argued that its production cost exceeded its value, that inflation had eroded its usefulness. Yet the public resisted. The penny had become more than a unit of currency, it was a symbol of small beginnings, of thrift, of luck. To save your pennies was to prepare for the future. To find a penny on the ground was to stumble upon fortune. Abraham Lincoln's face had become synonymous with honesty, perseverance, and the spirit of ordinary Americans who built their lives one small step or one small coin at a time. The persistence of the penny became a quiet rebellion against the logic of efficiency, a refusal to abandon tradition for convenience. In that light, the 1989 penny stands as a marker of continuity at the close of the 20th century. The world was rushing toward digital technology, computers, satellites, global communications, yet in pockets and purses, people still carried these tiny copper tokens that linked them to their ancestors. Each penny was a story in miniature, the fields of 1909 wheat transformed into the marble pillars of 1959's memorial, the face of Lincoln unchanging through decades of cultural upheaval. By the time the 1989 edition rolled out, that face had watched generations rise and fall, had borne witness to wars, social movements, and scientific revolutions. It was a silent observer of time itself. Collectors often speak of the soul of a coin. It is an intangible quality, something beyond metal and design. It's the sense that the coin carries meaning, emotional, historical, even spiritual. The 1989 penny, though small, has this quality in abundance. Perhaps it's the gaze of Lincoln, carved with such empathy by Brenner decades earlier, that gives it life. Perhaps it's the way light glints off the copper surface, echoing the fires of the mint where it was born. Or perhaps it's simply the knowledge that among billions of identical coins, this one could be the rare specimen, the hidden treasure that changes everything. Every collector who holds one wonders, could this be the one? Could this be the legendary penny that will rewrite numismatic history? Stories circulate in the coin world, tales of anonymous finds that turn ordinary people into millionaires overnight. A retired machinist discovering a double-die penny in a jar of old change, a teenager spotting an off-metal strike in his father's collection, an estate sale revealing a roll of mint-state coins sealed for decades. Each story reinforces the mythology surrounding these coins. And in that mythology, the 1989 cent has taken its place as a modern legend, often cited in lists of valuable error coins and fantasy valuations that soar into the billions. Though such astronomical figures are more symbolic than literal, they represent something real, the boundless imagination and excitement that coin collecting inspires. Behind the monetary speculation lies a subtler truth. The worth of any coin, like any artifact, comes from the meaning people attach to it. A collector values it for its rarity, a historian for its context, a citizen for its symbolism. When those perspectives converge, the result is something priceless. The 1989 penny's legendary valuation of $13,600 million may not exist in but generations of people who never noticed the date or the mint mark, only its convenience. And one day, perhaps, that same penny would end up in the hands of a collector who, with a magnifying glass and a careful eye, would realize that the coin he holds is no ordinary cent at all. At that moment, its story would change. To that sense, the 1989 penny is both artifact and legend, both currency and culture. It invites us to think about what value really means. Is it measured in metal, in numbers, in memories, or in dreams? As night falls on the great halls of the U.S. Mint, where new coins are still struck by the millions, the 1989 penny remains a whisper from the past. The dies that created it are long retired, their edges worn, their surfaces polished away. The workers who monitored those machines may have forgotten that particular year. The story of the 1989 penny does not end with its minting, nor with the discoveries of rare errors that set collectors' hearts racing. Its true journey began once it entered the world, once it left the roar of the presses and fell into the rhythm of human life. For every coin struck, a new path unfolded. Some would circulate for decades, slowly dulling as they passed from hand to hand. Others would vanish into savings jars, drawers, and forgotten pockets. Yet a few, a precious few, would be recognized for what they were, near-perfect survivors of time, destined to become artifacts of extraordinary fascination. Each of those coins carries a dual identity. On one side, it is a product of the mint, uniform and deliberate, the result of industrial precision. On the other, it is a vessel of randomness, of chance events, environmental wear, and human touch. That tension between control and chaos defines every collectible coin. The 1989 penny is no exception. When collectors gaze at it beneath magnification, they are not merely studying a piece of metal, they are decoding the passage of time itself, reading a language written in scratches, tones, and luster. The faintest shift in color, the tiniest die crack, can separate a coin worth 1 cent from one worth a fortune. As the years passed, the legend of the 1989 cent began to grow. Articles appeared in hobby journals and numismatic magazines, recounting tales of rare mint errors and high-grade specimens found in unexpected places. The internet, once it arrived, amplified these stories to a global scale. Images of gleaming 1989 pennies labeled ultra-rare or worth millions circulated online, blurring the line between fact and fantasy. Some listings were exaggerations, yet the myth fed on itself. Each rumor inspired new searches, new examinations of pocket change. Somewhere out there, perhaps, was the coin that would change everything. And in that collective hope lay the true power of the penny. It had become a modern talisman of luck and possibility. To understand why the value of a simple coin could climb so high, one must understand the human hunger for rarity. Value, in its purest sense, is not inherent. It is bestowed. A coin becomes valuable because we decide it is, because we see in it a reflection of uniqueness, of perfection, or of error so rare it feels miraculous. The 1989 penny sits at that intersection. Billions were minted, yet only a handful display the conditions that make collectors pause. In that moment of recognition, ordinary metal transforms into treasure. It is a quiet form of alchemy, not of gold, but of meaning. In auction halls where serious collectors gather, this alchemy is performed with ceremony. Rows of coins lie under glass, each accompanied by a small card noting its grade, provenance, and estimate. When the auctioneer's voice fills the room, numbers begin to climb, hands raise, and the crowd holds its breath. A simple 1-cent coin may open bidding at a few $100s, within minutes, it can soar to thousands. The air vibrates with anticipation. The bidders are not merely buying metal, they are buying a story, a connection to history, a fragment of permanence in a fleeting world. And when the gavel falls, the winner holds in his hands a piece of that story, a coin that has crossed from currency into legend. The highest recorded prices for modern Lincoln cents are staggering. Perfectly preserved examples of rare minting years have sold for sums that seem impossible for such a small denomination. In this world, the 1989 penny's rumored valuation of $13,600 million becomes less a literal figure and more a symbol, a measure of how far imagination can stretch when passion and rarity combine. Each claim of incredible worth reminds us that value is not a number fixed by law but an emotion shared by believers. Behind every legendary coin, there is a network of guardians, the numismatists who catalog and classify, the historians who trace its lineage, and the archivists who preserve mint records from decades past. They are the keepers of truth in a realm where myth often blurs with reality. Their work ensures that each discovery is documented, each variety identified, each error explained. For them, the 1989 penny is not only a collectible but a chapter in an ongoing chronicle of American coinage. Every die mark, every shift in composition, every alteration in minting technique tells part of a larger story about technology, economics, and artistry. Those who study the Lincoln cent often speak of its evolution as a mirror of the nation itself. The wheat years of 1909 symbolized growth and agriculture, the heart of early America. The memorial reverse of 1959 reflected unity and strength during the Cold War era. And later, new designs would appear to honor the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth. The 1989 issue, caught between these transitions, represents constancy, a quiet reaffirmation of identity at the close of a turbulent century. Its face is unchanged, its message enduring: liberty, trust, unity. The coin's small mass, just 2.5 grams of copper-plated zinc, embodies a paradox. It is light enough to be forgotten, yet heavy with meaning. That thin layer of copper hides the silvery core beneath, much like the layers of history concealed within the nation it represents. To hold it is to feel the weight of both progress and memory. Its smooth surface carries the fingerprints of generations, its edges rounded by the countless exchanges that define human connection. Numismatics, at its heart, is a study of human behavior. Collectors are storytellers who use coins as their medium. The 1989 penny has inspired thousands of such stories, tales of discovery, of obsession, of patience rewarded. Forums fill with posts describing the thrill of finding an uncirculated specimen, the glint of mint red still visible after decades. Others write of disappointment, of searching through rolls for years without success. Yet even in failure, there is joy. The journey itself becomes the treasure. As these stories spread, the coin's cultural footprint grows. Artists use it in sculptures and installations, writers reference it as a metaphor for overlooked beauty. Economists cite it in discussions of monetary symbolism. Teachers use it to introduce students to history, chemistry, and design. In this way, the 1989 penny transcends its physical form. It becomes an idea, a reminder that greatness can exist in the smallest of things. There is also something deeply emotional about the penny's connection to Abraham Lincoln. His image, calm and contemplative, has watched over the American people for more than a century. He is the most enduring figure on U.S. currency, not because of wealth or conquest, but because of moral courage and compassion. The coin bearing his likeness serves as a daily reminder of honesty, unity, and perseverance. In 1989, that message resonated in a world seeking stability. Today, it continues to speak silently from every pocket, every drawer, every forgotten coin resting in the palm of a child who might one day become a collector, and so the legend persists. It travels through generations, through families, through the hum of curiosity that never fades. The coin becomes a bridge between past and present, between fact and dream. Its market value may fluctuate, but its symbolic value only grows. For as long as there are people who search for significance in small things, the 1989 penny will continue to gleam in imagination like a tiny sun, bright and eternal. In a world driven by numbers and efficiency, the persistence of such fascination might seem irrational. Yet it reveals something profoundly human, our need to remember, to collect, to hold on. Coins are the storytellers we can touch. Each one whispers, "I was there." The 1989 penny whispers of a time when the world was changing, when technology was rising, when memory was still made of metal. It tells us that history is not only found in books and monuments but in the quiet shimmer of everyday objects that endure long after we forget their worth, and perhaps that is the true treasure, the awareness that value lives not only in the rare and the perfect, but in the stories we choose to keep alive. The 1989 penny, tiny and unassuming, has become a vessel for that awareness. It reminds us that even the smallest things can carry the weight of centuries, that beauty can hide in plain sight, and that meaning often waits where we least expect it. As decades drift quietly into history, the 1989 penny still circulates among us like a messenger that refuses to retire. Most people no longer notice it. It slips through fingers at grocery counters, clinks in vending machines, collects dust in car cup holders. Yet, unseen, it continues its silent voyage, surviving when everything around it changes. That small coin is a paradox of endurance, forgotten by habit, remembered by meaning. If you pause and look closely at one under gentle light, you begin to see more than metal. You see time condensed into a surface, tiny scratches that resemble the lines on a human palm, each one a record of touch. Those faint abrasions are not damage, they are memory. Every place the penny has been, every exchange it has witnessed, leaves a mark. A coin minted in 1989 may have passed through the hands of thousands, crossing generations without a word, carrying with it the residue of countless moments that no photograph could capture. In this way, a simple cent becomes a mirror of human continuity. It reminds us that even the smallest fragments of the past persist, quietly defying disappearance. The penny's copper sheen may dull, its details may fade, but its story never ends. It is the physical proof of existence, an artifact that outlives its owners. People vanish, economies shift, but the coin remains, whispering from the depths of drawers and pockets that nothing truly ordinary ever stays that way. Collectors who dedicate their lives to studying coins often describe a strange intimacy with them. They speak of holding a 1989 cent and feeling as though they can sense the rhythm of that year, the hum of factories, the headlines of history, the laughter of people long gone. To them, every coin is a heartbeat preserved in metal. They search not only for perfection but for connection, for that moment when the past touches the present through an object so small it fits on a fingertip, and perhaps this is why the legend of the valuable penny persists with such power. The figure of $13,600 million is not a number of commerce, it is a number of awe. It expresses something unquantifiable, the human capacity to believe that greatness can hide in plain sight. When people hear that a single coin might be worth more than entire empires, their imagination awakens. They begin to look again, to notice details, to feel curiosity stirring where indifference once lived. That spark is priceless. In a sense, the myth of the 1989 penny is a parable about perception. Every coin is identical at first glance, yet we learn that slight differences, tiny imperfections invisible to most, can redefine value entirely. The same truth applies to life. Each person, each moment, appears ordinary until seen with attention. Then uniqueness reveals itself, and worth multiplies beyond measure. The penny teaches that lesson quietly, glinting from the floor of a gas station or the bottom of a jar, reminding us that miracles are often small and round. Philosophers might say that coins are our earliest time machines. They travel across decades unchanged, carrying forward the faces and words of the past. Abraham Lincoln still gazes outward with the same expression he wore when Victor David Brenner sculpted him in 1909. To look at a 1989 cent is to share that gaze, to meet the eyes of history and recognize yourself in them. In that shared glance, time collapses. You realize that the distance between 1865 and 1989, between 1989 and today, is only the blink of human memory. The material of the coin itself tells another story, the shift from copper to zinc, from abundance to conservation. It records an economic truth that even nations must adapt to the price of their resources. Yet out of that change came a new symbol. The zinc core beneath the copper plating is like the hidden resilience beneath appearance. What seems delicate endures. What seems cheap may carry infinite meaning. For the collector community, the 1989 penny embodies that endurance. They gather in conventions and online forums, sharing photographs, discoveries, and hopes. They pass magnifying glasses to children, teaching them to notice what others overlook. In doing so, they extend the life of the coin far beyond its physical form. Each conversation, each shared image, is another strike of the mint, not of metal, but of memory. Economists might one day decide to retire the penny, to declare it obsolete in a cashless age. But even if that day comes, the 1989 cent will not vanish. It will live on in albums, in stories, in documentaries like this one. It will remain a witness to a century of belief in tangible value. People will still hold it up to the light and feel something, a quiet respect for the past, a recognition of how small objects can shape large emotions. If you listen closely, the coin seems to speak. It does not boast of wealth or rarity. It whispers of persistence. It says, I was made in the millions, yet I am still singular. I was meant to be spent, yet I became a keeper of memory. I am 1 cent, yet I contain the story of a nation. That whisper is the essence of its legend, the reason collectors search and dream, and so the tale circles back to where it began, with a single coin struck in 1989, shining briefly before fading into circulation, only to be rediscovered decades later as a relic of immeasurable worth. Its journey is the journey of everything we value: creation, loss, rediscovery. The 1989 penny teaches that worth is not imposed from above, it grows from the meaning we give. $13,600 million, 13,000, or 1, it makes no difference. The true value lies in the story, in the act of noticing, in the reverence we feel for things that survive. In the end, that is what makes the coin legendary. It is not its rarity, nor its metal, but its ability to remind us of ourselves, of our need to remember, to hope, to assign meaning to the material world. Each 1989 penny still glows faintly with that reminder, circulating through time like a heartbeat. Somewhere, at this very moment, one rests in a palm, its edges worn smooth, its image faint but enduring. And though it may be spent in an instant, it leaves behind the quiet truth that nothing small is ever truly small, not when it carries the weight of history, the echo of a nation, and the dream of everlasting value. The story of the 1989 penny, like all great stories, is not only about what it is made of, but what it represents. Beneath its thin copper shell lies the heartbeat of an era, a time when the world balanced between the analog and digital, between memory and invention, between what was fading and what was about to begin. 1989 was not simply another year stamped into history, it was a year of thresholds. The Berlin Wall trembled. The Cold War sighed its final breath. Music shifted, technology accelerated, and humanity quietly stepped from one age into another. And somewhere in that same year, in the endless rhythm of minting presses, billions of tiny copper-plated circles were born, each one destined to live longer than the hand that first held it. Imagine those minting presses, colossal and relentless, thunder echoing through the steel halls of the Denver Mint, the dies striking blank planchets with precision. Each strike was a heartbeat. Each heartbeat created another penny, another vessel of national identity. The machines moved without pause, and yet, within that repetition, something unique was always possible. A slightly misaligned die, a clipped planchet, a doubled strike, tiny errors that humans once ignored, but which collectors now seek like lost treasure. It is irony and poetry together. Imperfection creates greatness. To study coins is to study the dialogue between perfection and flaw. A perfect 1989 penny is beautiful, yes, but it is the flawed one that tells a deeper story. The off-center strike, the floating head, the faint doubling of Lincoln's eye, these are whispers of human fallibility in a world of machines. They remind us that even in the most controlled environments, chance remains our constant companion. Somewhere among those countless coins, one misalignment might have created the legendary rarity valued at $13,600 million. Whether myth or miracle, it embodies the eternal human hope that something ordinary can, by accident or fate, become extraordinary. This hope keeps collectors awake at night. It drives them to inspect every detail under magnifying glass light, to turn each penny slowly, letting the reflection reveal the truth of its design. They seek the small signs, the sharpness of the rim, the brightness of the field, the clarity of the mint mark. They memorize the angle of Lincoln's jaw, the distance between the letters "In God We Trust," the alignment of the memorial's pillars on the reverse side. It is not merely a search for wealth, it is devotion, an act of seeing. In the modern age, where most things are disposable, the coin collector practices the ancient art of attention. The 1989 penny rewards that attention. Its design is deceptively simple: Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, yet it holds layers of meaning. The memorial, carved in miniature, contains within it the tiny statue of Lincoln visible between the columns, a sculptural echo within an image. It is the only coin in circulation to depict the same person twice. That subtle duality, Lincoln watching himself, feels almost metaphysical. It is as if the coin reminds us that self-reflection is at the heart of progress. We move forward by looking inward, by remembering what we once stood for. In that sense, the penny is not just currency, it is conscience. Every time it changes hands, it carries that quiet moral weight. Lincoln's gaze is steady, his expression patient. He has endured in our pockets for more than a century, through wars, depressions, triumphs, and reinventions. His image has witnessed every transaction, from the smallest purchase to the grandest trade. Yet his worth, measured in cents, has never matched the value of his symbol. The 1989 penny is therefore a paradox of modesty and magnitude, a single cent that encapsulates the very idea of equality. 1 cent, 1 vote, 1 life, 1 story, each counts, no matter how small, and yet, for all its ubiquity, the 1989 penny carries mysteries that still fascinate numismatists. Some claim that rare variations exist: experimental planchets, transitional alloys, even hidden minting anomalies that slipped past quality control. These are the holy grails of the collector world, the ghosts that haunt every coin roll hunt. When one is rumored to exist, entire communities ignite with excitement. Conversations spread through forums and conventions like sparks in dry grass. People dig through jars, attic boxes, childhood piggy banks, hoping lightning might strike in their own hands. That collective thrill, the merging of luck and knowledge, is the lifeblood of coin lore. The idea that one small coin from 1989 could hold a market value of $13,600 million may sound like exaggeration, and perhaps it is. But exaggeration is the poetry of belief. Every legend begins with an overstatement of hope, and then grows into truth by the sheer power of imagination. The number itself, vast and impossible, becomes a symbol of infinite worth, the idea that value is not fixed by the market but created by the dreamer. It transforms a coin into a story, and a story into eternity. For collectors, finding such a coin is not about profit alone. It is about validation, the feeling that their years of quiet searching, their patience and persistence, have meaning. When they finally uncover a rare penny, they hold not just metal but destiny. They feel connected to history in a tangible way, as if they have unearthed a hidden thread linking them to every hand that ever touched that coin. It is the satisfaction of discovery, of bridging time, of holding a piece of the past that continues to pulse with life. The weight of the 1989 penny, 2.5 grams, is almost nothing, yet in symbolic terms, it is immeasurable. That feather-light disc carries the legacy of a century, the face of a president, the memory of an era, the faith of a people. When you think of it that way, the idea of a penny being worth billions begins to make emotional sense. Value, after all, is a language of meaning. A story that moves us, a relic that reminds us who we are, can be priceless even if it fits inside a closed fist. And so, the legend of the 1989 penny continues to expand, whispered among collectors, told in documentaries, debated in forums, dreamed about by treasure hunters. It circulates through human imagination as endlessly as it circulates through our economy. Each new generation rediscovers it, reinterprets it, and passes the myth onward. Some chase it for riches, some for curiosity, some simply because they feel that something extraordinary might still be waiting, hidden in the ordinary. Perhaps that is the greatest gift of the 1989 penny: it restores our capacity to wonder. In a world that moves too fast, that measures worth in data and digits, a small copper coin invites us to slow down, to look closer, to remember that even the tiniest object can hold galaxies of meaning. It reminds us that mystery still exists in the everyday, that history still hums beneath our fingertips, and that the future often hides in the smallest places. If you listen long enough, even metal begins to speak. The 1989 penny speaks in the language of endurance, a language older than any empire, quieter than any speech, yet understood by all who hold it. Its edges, though smooth from decades of circulation, still hum faintly with the sound of creation, as if the mince press left an echo inside the copper. It is the hum of time itself, pressed into a circle, destined to wander. When historians describe the late 20th century, they talk about the rise of machines, the birth of the internet, the acceleration of everything. Yet hidden in all that speed was a contradiction. Humanity still clung to the smallest, slowest artifact of trade, the penny. The 1989 cent lived through the digital dawn, quietly traveling through analog hands. It became a token of continuity between centuries, a reminder that even as we invented faster ways to exchange value, we still needed to touch something real. Hold a 1989 penny and turn it toward the light. One side bears Lincoln's calm gaze, the portrait of perseverance, carved in miniature. The other shows the Lincoln Memorial, balanced, symmetrical, eternal. Between those two faces lies a philosophy. The obverse is the individual, the person who endures. The reverse is the collective, the nation that remembers. Together, they form a conversation between self and society, between past and present, between what we owe to history and what history owes to us. That conversation deepens when you realize how often a coin outlives its makers. The men and women who designed, minted, and distributed the 1989 cent have grown old or passed on, yet their work continues to circulate. A coin is, in this sense, an act of quiet immortality. It does not shout, it persists. Every penny is a promise that something we create today can still have meaning tomorrow. The philosopher Walter Benjamin once wrote that every object carries the aura of the moment it was made, the unique vibration of its origin. The 1989 penny carries the aura of an era poised between old and new, when craftsmanship still mattered and hope still clung to metal. In that way, its surface is a mirror of cultural transition. Look closely, and you may see the reflection of a world learning to let go of its material symbols while still needing them for comfort. Collectors, perhaps unconsciously, sense that. Their fascination with the 1989 cent is not only about rarity, it's about recovering that lost aura. Each time they polish a coin or document a mint error, they're not simply cataloging metal, they're restoring a link in the chain of human continuity. They resist the amnesia of progress by giving names to small things. The act of collecting is an act of remembrance. Think of the penny's weight again, 2.5 grams. That's less than a sheet of paper, less than a raindrop in your palm. Yet across decades, that slight mass has crossed continents, changed owners thousands of times, and survived recessions, wars, and revolutions in technology. It is astonishing how much history can hide in so little weight. Economists can calculate cost, scientists can measure density, but only storytellers can measure meaning. And meaning, like gravity, pulls everything toward significance. So when someone says that a single 1989 cent might be worth $13,600 million, we can hear it not as a literal claim but as a metaphor for the way value accumulates through time and belief. Each story told about that coin adds another invisible layer of worth. Each dream of discovery multiplies its emotional currency. Markets fluctuate, but myth compounds interest forever. What gives a myth its staying power is not proof but participation. Every person who checks their pocket change hoping to glimpse a rare 1989 penny becomes part of the legend. That collective attention breathes life into the coin, turning an object of commerce into a vessel of imagination. A legend survives only when it is retold, and the 1989 cent has become a story retold a million times in a million hands. Even now, somewhere, a child empties a jar of coins on a kitchen table, the metal scattering like raindrops. One coin lands upright, catching the sunlight, and for a brief moment the child wonders if this could be the one, the rare, impossible treasure worth more than mountains. That moment of wonder is the true currency of the legend. It is how history renews itself, one dream at a time. The 1989 penny also embodies a moral lesson about perception. Because its value is so small, people overlook it. Yet it is precisely the overlooked that often contains the miraculous. The coin becomes a meditation on humility, the idea that greatness rarely announces itself. It waits, quietly, in the unnoticed corners of daily life. To find it, one must look with patience and respect, and so, the story of this coin is not really about money at all. It is about attention, the human capacity to see depth where others see surface, to find meaning where others see metal. It asks us to slow down, to look closely, to appreciate the enduring artistry of something designed to be spent and forgotten. The irony is profound. An object meant for circulation becomes a monument precisely because people refuse to let it disappear. In that way, the 1989 cent stands as both relic and reminder. It whispers that the measure of civilization is not in its wealth but in what it chooses to remember. We mint our ideals into metal because we fear forgetting them. Every penny bears witness to that fear and that hope that our symbols will outlast us, that the smallest things we make will keep our stories alive when we are gone. The penny glows faintly in the half-light, and for a moment it feels as though it remembers. Every reflection on its surface is a fragment of someone's story, a reflection of the countless hands that have held it, the countless lives it has brushed against without knowing. The 1989 cent has become a tiny archive of human exchange, a quiet witness to both the mundane and the meaningful. It is, in a way, the perfect historian, silent, impartial, enduring. Coins survive where people forget. They fall through cracks in floorboards, sink into soil, hide beneath old furniture, only to be rediscovered decades later by someone who bends down and feels the weight of time in their palm. When that happens, the moment becomes more than discovery, it becomes communion. One person's now meets another person's then. The 1989 penny, born in the roar of industrial minting presses, continues to travel through the soft murmurs of human life. It is always moving, always listening. There is something almost spiritual about that motion. A coin, by its nature, is never still. It circulates like blood through the body of a nation, carrying energy from one point to another. In that sense, the penny is both physical and symbolic, a vessel of value and a metaphor for connection. Each time it changes hands, it completes a small act of trust. One person gives, another receives, both believe. This faith in exchange, this invisible understanding that a small disc of metal can hold meaning, is one of the oldest human inventions of the 1989 cent. Carries that inheritance into the modern age. It bridges the distance between the tangible and the digital, between touch and abstraction. Even in an era of screens and invisible transactions, there remains a yearning for something that can be felt. The penny satisfies that yearning. It anchors value in something real, a sound, a shine, a temperature. To hold it is to hold the idea of value itself. Collectors often speak of the voice of metal. They claim that if you drop a genuine copper coin onto a wooden table, it rings with a pure tone, different from the dull clink of later zinc cents. The 1989 penny, though mostly zinc beneath its copper plating, still carries a faint echo of that older resonance. It is a transitional sound, the echo of an era when coins were solid, when worth was heavy. That soft metallic note, lasting barely a second, is a music of memory. Somewhere in that music lies the story of human aspiration. Every civilization has created coins not only to trade but to testify, to declare its existence to the future. When archaeologists unearth ancient currency, they do more than count, they listen. The coin tells them who ruled, what ideals were honored, what art was possible. In that sense, our pennies are letters to tomorrow, written in metal. The 1989 cent is one such letter, addressed to whoever will hold it when the paper money has faded and the servers have gone silent. What will that person think? Perhaps they will marvel at how primitive we seemed, using metal discs to represent value. Or perhaps they will envy us for having something we could touch. They may see in that coin the trace of a simpler faith, the faith that value could be shared, that worth could be measured and exchanged without losing meaning. They may even sense the warmth of all the human hands that once passed it along, the faint human residue of generosity and need. This is why stories of incredible worth, like the legend of the 1989 penny valued at $13,600 million, endure. They are not mere exaggerations, they are acts of yearning. They express our desire to believe that the smallest part of our world might still hold infinite potential. Every myth begins with that desire, to find the extraordinary hiding inside the ordinary. Imagine the scene of discovery. A collector at a worn wooden desk, a magnifier tilted toward the light, the faint smell of old paper and copper in the air. He turns the coin slowly, studying its surface for anomalies, for signs that it is not like the others. And then, perhaps, something different catches his eye, a shimmer in the lettering, a doubled line, an error invisible to the untrained observer. In that instant, the ordinary penny becomes a revelation. He feels the tremor of possibility, that he has found something that will rewrite value itself. It is not greed that fills the room, it is awe. That awe is what sustains the entire field of numismatics. To outsiders, it might look like obsession, people cataloging minute differences, debating the thickness of mint marks, the depth of strike. But beneath the precision is devotion. To study coins is to practice patience, to listen for history's heartbeat in metal. Each tiny variation, each minting anomaly, is a reminder that history is made not in grand gestures but in small imperfections. The 1989 penny, though struck billions of times, teaches that lesson better than most. Its very abundance invites humility, its occasional rarity invites wonder. It stands between those two truths like a teacher, showing that value is born at the intersection of effort and chance. In its unassuming circle lies a philosophy of life, that what is common can become sacred when seen with care. When you look closely at the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial, you see, faintly, the sculpted figure of Lincoln sitting within. It is a statue within a statue, an image nested inside its own reflection. This design choice, small and easily missed, holds a deep poetry. It suggests that the image of a leader is not merely about power but about remembrance, that we build monuments not to worship, but to recall. Every time the coin flips in the air, we reenact that memory, and so, each penny, especially the 1989 cent, becomes an act of continuity. It connects the living with the dead, the present with the past. It whispers that our hands are not the first to hold it, nor will they be the last. It reassures us that we belong to a larger pattern of exchange, not only economic but emotional. In the end, perhaps the reason we keep the penny, even when it costs more to make than it's worth to spend, is not practicality but sentiment. It is our smallest coin, yet our largest symbol. To eliminate it would feel like erasing a piece of our collective heartbeat. The 1989 penny reminds us that value is not only about efficiency, it's about memory, about the comfort of continuity in a changing world. The world keeps turning, faster each year, yet the penny endures, a small circle of metal resisting the blur of time. The 1989 cent, with its faint gleam and gentle weight, is now more than currency. It is a memory made solid, a fragment of history that refuses to vanish. Each time light slides across its surface, it reminds us that memory has texture, that time can be touched if we only know where to look. To many, it is just a coin. To a collector, it is a heartbeat. To a philosopher, it is a mirror. To a nation, it is a signature, a proof of what it once believed about fairness, equality, and endurance. A single cent may seem meaningless in a world of billion-dollar markets and virtual money, yet it speaks a truth that the digital age often forgets. Value begins with meaning, and meaning begins with touch. That is where the 1989 penny begins and ends. The warmth of the skin transfers onto its metal, the human oils darken its color, and over years that touch becomes a kind of patina, a fingerprint of civilization itself. No two pennies are the same once they have lived among us. Each carries the residue of countless hands, the sweat of labor, the dust of travel, the quiet energy of daily survival. To study its surface is to study us. There is something poetic in how such a small object survives so many cycles of change. Think of what the world has seen since 1989. Walls fell, borders shifted, empires receded, technologies rewrote the rhythm of life. The coin remained. Empires and algorithms might shape the world, but a penny still rings the same when it hits the floor. That small sound has outlasted revolutions. Every great civilization leaves behind coins: Rome, Greece, Egypt, the dynasties of Asia, the kingdoms of Europe. When those civilizations crumble, when their monuments collapse and their language fades, the coins remain, buried in earth, glowing faintly when the soil gives them back. Archaeologists do not find ruins first, they find money. And when they lift a coin from the ground, it speaks louder than any ruined temple: we were here. The 1989 penny continues the tradition, our future archaeology, our message in metal to those who will come after us. Perhaps, centuries from now, when our own cities have changed beyond recognition, someone will find a 1989 cent deep in the dust. They will hold it under an alien sky, brush away the dirt, and see the face of Abraham Lincoln still staring calmly into time. They will not need translation to understand that this was a symbol of belief, that once, long ago, a people valued not only gold but also copper, not only riches but remembrance. That is why legends of impossible value, the whispers of a penny worth $13,600 million, are more than fantasy. They are expressions of our desire for immortality. When we say that a coin is worth billions, what we mean is that its story has become infinite. We measure its worth not in dollars, but in wonder. It is the wonder of something ordinary refusing to die, and maybe that is why humans have always loved treasure stories. Because deep down, we know the treasure isn't gold or gems, it's the meaning we project onto them. The 1989 penny becomes a vessel for that meaning. It is both myth and metal, dream and dust. Somewhere in the mind of every collector is the same thought: maybe mine is the one. That dream keeps the legend alive. Even economists who dismiss the penny as obsolete can't erase its cultural gravity. When debates arise about eliminating it, the public resists. Why? Because people sense that losing the penny means losing more than metal. It would mean losing a link to memory, to history, to the idea that even the smallest thing can matter. The penny reminds us of our democratic impulse, that value belongs to everyone, even in its tiniest form. Look again at Lincoln's face on the 1989 cent, the quiet strength, the modest posture, the lines of thought. He does not smile, yet his expression is not stern, it is reflective, aware, human. It is as if he knows he will be carried in pockets long after his era, that his image will outlive marble and paper. The coin gave him that immortality. Through it, he speaks not from monuments, but from moments, from the exchange of hands, the rhythm of commerce, the living pulse of a nation still in motion. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side completes the dialogue. It is the place where his memory resides, carved in stone, scaled down into the tiniest monument ever minted. The memorial itself contains the statue of Lincoln inside, so that within one coin, he exists twice as man and as memory. The symbolism is profound. It tells us that remembrance itself becomes part of identity, that to honor something is to renew it. This design, struck into billions of coins, has passed silently through grocery stores, bus stations, pockets of the rich and poor alike. It has lived in wallets next to lottery tickets and folded photographs. It has crossed borders, fallen into cracks, survived fires, floods, and forgetfulness. Yet it still gleams, even faintly, because it was made not just to circulate but to endure. Every coin carries the physics of faith. It turns value into matter, belief into weight. The 1989 penny is our small, shining metaphor for the persistence of meaning. Even when markets collapse, when wealth disappears in numbers, this tiny round token remains humble, real, unbroken. It is proof that the physical still matters in a world that often forgets how to feel, and that brings us back to the heart of the legend, the idea that the smallest object can hold the largest story. That is why the 1989 penny's supposed worth $13,600 million feels, in some strange way, true. It may not be true in currency, but it is true in emotion. It is true in imagination. It is true in what it inspires: curiosity, reverence, hope. Those are values that can never be printed or spent, they can only be believed. The penny endures because it carries that belief. It reminds us that permanence can exist even in what we overlook. That we can find the infinite in the finite, the sacred in the simple, the universe in something that costs almost nothing. The 1989 cent, still turning quietly in the flow of human life, proves that beauty can hide in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice, to understand, to believe. There are moments in history when silence tells a story better than words. The 1989 penny, small and unassuming, carries that silence like a song too soft for most to hear. It has no voice, no motion of its own, yet wherever it travels, it gathers meaning. Each exchange, each moment of passing from one hand to another, is another verse in its invisible melody, the song of continuity. Somewhere, in a forgotten jar in a kitchen cupboard, a 1989 cent lies among others. Dust gathers on the glass. Decades may pass before someone opens it. But when they do, they will hear that faint chime, the unmistakable sound of metal meeting air, and in that sound, time folds. It will be as though 1989 itself exhales once more. That is the quiet miracle of preservation, the ability of an object to keep a year alive. A coin has no memory, yet it remembers. It remembers not through thought but through endurance. It carries the fingerprints of its century, the politics, the economics, the laughter, the loss. Every scuff on its rim is a record of contact. Every faint scratch is a document of exchange. And in that sense, each 1989 penny is a microcosm of humanity, shaped by impact, scarred by time, yet still shining when held to the light. As the film of history unwinds, we realize that coins are among the few artifacts that survive both empire and poverty, war and peace. Paper burns. Buildings crumble. Data erases itself. But metal, humble and patient, endures. When future generations unearth our age, it will not be our screens they find, it will be our coins. Among them, perhaps, one from 1989, still legible, still glimmering faintly in the soil, will tell them that we once believed in tangible value, that we once held meaning in our hands. Think of what that means. In a single penny, the entire human story condenses: creation, exchange, erosion, remembrance. It is the loop of existence itself, born bright, dimmed by use, rediscovered as relic. What we call patina is really time's signature. And just as the coin darkens gracefully, so too does our understanding deepen with age. The older it grows, the more sacred it becomes. The legend of the 1989 penny, valued at $13,600 million, now feels less like a claim and more like a symbol, a way of saying that its worth cannot be measured in numbers. It is worth as much as our imagination allows. It is priceless because it awakens something ancient in us: the thrill of discovery, the reverence for endurance, the wonder that value can survive decay. When collectors gather, they do not merely trade objects, they trade stories. One speaks of finding a coin under floorboards, another of inheriting one from a grandparent. Each tale is a variation on the same theme: the coin is messenger between lives. The 1989 cent sits at the center of such stories, quietly binding generations together. It is proof that heritage is not stored in museums but in the small things we keep without noticing. Perhaps that is why, even in a world driven by invisible money, the penny refuses extinction. It lingers not out of necessity but out of affection. People defend it not for its purchasing power but for its presence. The penny is the last tangible trace of a slower rhythm, a world that still believed in the grace of smallness. To let it vanish would be to silence a gentle heartbeat, and so the 1989 penny lives on, in pockets, in drawers, in the soil beneath sidewalks. Some are bright, freshly found, others are so worn that Lincoln's face is nearly gone, his features blurred by the passage of hands and years. Yet even the faintest image carries dignity. Each coin, however worn, still whispers the same truth: I endure. There is something cosmic about that endurance. Metals that form our coins were born in the hearts of ancient stars, scattered through space by explosions billions of years ago, gathered again into the earth, mined, refined, and finally shaped into these tiny circles we use to measure value. When you hold a 1989 penny, you hold stardust that learned the language of civilization. You hold a fragment of the universe that decided to represent worth, that thought alone can stop time. The narrator's voice softens, the camera moves slowly over a table where old coins rest under a single beam of light. Each glimmers like a small sun. The 1989 penny sits among them, ordinary yet eternal, its copper glow merging with the light that once came from stars. In that fusion, the boundaries between material and myth dissolve. The coin is no longer just an object, it is an idea that even the smallest creation can echo across eternity. Perhaps this is the secret meaning of its legendary value, not financial, but metaphysical. The $13.600 million is not a number to be counted, it is a number to be felt. It represents infinity in human terms, the magnitude of our need to believe that permanence exists. The coin's worth is our own longing, reflected back at us in metal form. So the 1989 penny becomes a compass pointing inward. It asks, what do we truly value? What do we preserve when everything else fades? It answers not with wealth, but with presence. It teaches that worth is measured by endurance, by story, by the simple miracle of remaining. In the quiet of evening, when light fades and sound retreats, imagine holding that penny between your fingers. Feel its weight, almost nothing, yet somehow immense. Feel its edges, softened by time, and listen for that subtle hum of history. Somewhere in that vibration lives the spirit of 1989, the laughter of children, the clang of factory machines, the pulse of a world both past and present. The coin still carries it all, patiently, endlessly. The story of the 1989 penny does not end, because it never truly began. It is a loop, an endless circle of metal and meaning, spinning quietly through human history. As the film slows, as the final chapter unfolds, the lens draws close to a single coin resting in the palm of a hand. Its copper glow is soft now, like the final light of evening. Every scar, every ridge, every faded letter on its surface has become a language, one that speaks not to the mind but to the soul. It whispers, you are part of something enduring. That is the essence of the 1989 penny, not its material, not its market value, but the invisible thread it weaves between all who have ever touched it. From the mint where it was struck, to the first pocket it entered, to the hundreds of exchanges that followed, the coin has been a silent witness to human life. It has seen kindness, greed, survival, laughter. It has lived in moments of joy and moments of loss. It has crossed decades, unseen but eternal, carrying within it the faint heartbeat of civilization. The narrator's voice softens, now slow, reverent, filled with awe. Each coin ever made is a fragment of humanity's attempt to give permanence to value. But the penny, especially the 1989 cent, is something deeper. It is not only a measure of trade, it is a measure of memory. Every nation that mints a coin is saying to the future, we were here, we believed in something, we gave our time a shape. And so the 1989 penny, born of ordinary copper and zinc, has become extraordinary not because of rarity but because of endurance. It has lived beyond expectation, still shining faintly in an age that has forgotten what touch feels like. It still clinks softly in pockets, still rolls under vending machines, still waits in jars and drawers like an ember of the past. And in that quiet persistence, it tells a greater truth, that value does not vanish when it is ignored. It waits to be rediscovered. The myth of the $13.600 million penny is not madness. It is metaphor. It is humanity's way of saying that no object is truly small when it carries the universe inside it. When people hear that number, they do not picture money, they picture meaning. They imagine holding something that connects them to time itself, to history, to wonder. That is the real treasure, the belief that there is still magic in the mundane. Look closer at the penny's face, the engraving of Abraham Lincoln. The lines of his profile are worn now, but even in erosion, his expression endures. He gazes forward, toward something unseen, as if looking through time. Behind him, the word liberty still stands, faint yet unbroken. To the right, the date 1989 glows like a portal, reminding us of a year now drifting in the deep current of memory. And above all, the inscription, "In God We Trust." These are not just words. They are promises. They are reminders that faith, freedom, and endurance are minted into the smallest things we make. Turn the coin over, the reverse still bears the Lincoln Memorial, a monument within a monument, a reflection of remembrance itself. Between its columns, the tiny image of Lincoln's seated statue hides like a ghost, a symbol of eternity folded into copper. The design is simple, yet infinite. In 1 inch of metal, it captures both man and meaning, both history and hope. The narrator pauses. The camera lingers. The silence stretches, filled with the hum of passing time, and then, the voice returns, steady, reflective, almost like prayer. We measure civilization not by the height of its towers, but by the smallness of the things it chooses to preserve. The penny is one such thing. It teaches patience, humility, and the beauty of endurance. It tells us that even what we overlook may hold more value than we imagine. The 1989 cent, through its myth and mystery, has become a mirror for us all, showing how easily we forget, and how powerfully we remember. For those who collect it, it is not just metal. It is memory. For those who study it, it is not just design. It is story. For those who find one by chance, it is not just luck. It is connection, a brief moment where past and present shake hands. Somewhere, right now, someone is holding a 1989 penny without realizing that it once belonged to someone who dreamed, someone who struggled, someone who loved. And someday, someone else will hold that same coin again. This is how immortality works, quietly, gently, one hand to another. The true worth of the coin is not in its price but in its presence. It is in the way it makes us pause, look closer, and remember that time itself can be held, that history, in its smallest form, can fit between our fingers. The 1989 penny is our tiny proof of forever. As the documentary nears its end, the music swells, low strings, warm brass, a single piano note repeating like a heartbeat. The final shot shows the coin resting in a beam of sunlight, turning slowly. Its copper glow deepens until it becomes pure light, blurring, dissolving, and then, only reflection remains. The voice fades into the quiet 1 cent. One story. One world remembered, the 1989 penny, a circle without end.